Wyoming. Just say the name Wyoming, and you'll conjure up visions of the Old West, cowboys, prospectors, rugged pioneers. And you can relive these adventures at the UXU Ranch in Cody, Wyoming. And during your stay at the UXU Ranch, you might get to witness and enjoy a fascinating presentation by the Draper Museum Raptor Experience on the birds of prey found in Northwest Wyoming. So partner, sit back and enjoy.
All right, well, how's everyone doing this evening?
Great.
Excellent. We're very glad you could join us here today. Like you said, my name is Brandon. I work with the Draper Museum Raptor Experience over at the Buffalo Bills Center of the West, and my job is to educate folks just like yourselves about some of the really cool stuff we have learned about the raptor species that you can find right here in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. So you guys are in a prime area to see some really cool birds of prey. And we brought 3 of our own to share with you so you can see some up-close personal details that normally the wild ones don't let you get this close to see. Now, how many of you have heard of the term raptor before? Most everyone, right? Now, how many of you, when you think of the term raptor, do you think velociraptor?
Yeah.
Some of us, okay. Well, unfortunately, we don't have those to share with you because usually they don't do very well. Based on all the movies, you know, the velociraptors are pretty hungry too. But we get the next best thing, which is their long-distant cousins. This is the modern-day raptors, also known as birds of prey. They're a specialized group of avian predatory or hunting bird, and they're characterized by 3 things that set them apart from all the different types of birds that you're going to find across the globe. So does anyone have an idea what those 3 traits might be? Any guesses?
They eat like meat.
That's part of it. They are meat eaters, yes. So, along with that, they're going to have some specialized parts of their body.
Claws.
There you go. So they're going to have some impressive feet and sharp talons. That's the #1 thing that really sets apart the raptors from all the rest of those birds. That is how they're going to acquire their dinner. We have some great birds that we work with. They're nice, calm, very easygoing, but they do get some needle-sharp talons there, so we want to make sure that we don't get that stuck into our bare arms. So that's why we use these nice gloves there. There we go. Now, as far as the raptors, they're going to have that nice set of feet and sharp talons. As they fly down to grab their meal, they're going to reach out at the last second, grab a hold of it. Boy, this is going to be fun. So they are going to have the back talon is the longest and the sharpest, and that's the hallux, that's the killing claw. And so you can see that on both of our birds. They actually are going to hook that back hallux into their prey, the talons in front, close down over it, and you squeeze, driving the back talon in, and you hold on until your prey stops moving. It's a very efficient way to get your dinner. Now these are 2 wonderful examples of birds of prey. This is Isham, our red-tailed hawk, and we have Teasdale, our great horned owl. Both really good examples of a raptor, but both very different types of raptors. And we're going to go into this here as we continue our program here. But they will have those impressive feet and sharp talons. What are the 2 other traits you think that raptors have that set them apart?
Eyes.
Eyes, very good. You know what you're talking about.
I went yesterday.
Okay, so you're going to be my backup savior in the audience there. All right, so they have incredible eyesight. It's estimated most birds of prey, they can actually see things about a mile away, depending on how they focus the lens in their eye. It's estimated that they can see colors that we can't even comprehend as humans. So especially your hawks, your eagles, your falcons, they're going to see colors that we can't even see. There's one study that actually has found out that American kestrels, little teeny birds that large of a wingspan there, they are known for hovering over the fields and the sides of the road. They will actually see the urine trails in the ultraviolet light spectrum. So it looks like a neon light. And they follow that where all those rodents are running around in those fields and meadows. And if you think about it, all the things that most of these raptors are going to be eating is usually a brown or gray critter running around on a brown or gray background. And nobody wants to be seen because nobody wants to be dinner. But luckily they can see colors that we can't even comprehend. You can easily follow that urine trail. You hover over where that opening is that the mouse disappeared into. The moment it pops its head out, you drop down, capture and kill it with your feet, and you've got your meal in your clutches all ready to go there. It also helps because in the case of those kestrels, they can see the light reflected off of the wing casings, so it's really easy to locate your dinner. Now, owls are a little different than all the rest of the raptors, and when are owls most active?
Nighttime.
Nighttime, right. And there are also always exceptions, so that's always fun. Burrowing owls, for example, they like to be out in the middle of the day. But many owl species like to be out in low light conditions. And they are not necessarily going to see colors as well as these birds are going to, or as us even, because color doesn't matter when light is really what matters, or if you have no light, you can't see color. So instead, they're going to see in lights and darks, whites and blacks, a little bit of grays, maybe a little bit of blues they've found. But that's really about it. But they also have other traits that give them a little more of an advantage in order to locate their meal. And we'll tell you about that in a little bit. All right, so there also will see images magnified 2 to 3 times larger than what we will see. So it's like you're looking through binoculars when you're looking for your dinner. Plus, they're going to process images faster than the human eye and brain. So it's that much easier to follow swiftly moving prey as it's running across the meadow. You can easily locate that, fly down, and get a good bite to eat that way. All right, so we have good eyesight. We have really impressive feet. What's one more thing that really sets these birds apart? What is it?
Their heads can turn.
Oh, that's a good guess. But not quite it, actually. It's not that their heads can turn. Everyone's head can turn all the way around at least once, but then they're no fun after that. Owls can go only 270 degrees, by the way, about 3/4 of the way around. But they have twice as many bones in their neck as we do. We have 7. Teasdale is going to have 14, but they're more of a disc shape. And it also helps that her blood vessels are woven in through the vertebral column so that she doesn't turn her head too far, pinch off that blood supply, and then fall and pass out, falling out of that tree there. You don't ever see owls passing out, falling out of trees. It's not a good thing for them. So since those blood vessels are woven through, they don't pinch off that blood supply. You can easily watch and hear what's going on around you without having to lift your feet up and shuffle around on that branch in order to see and hear what's going on behind you there, because that can give away your position. You'll miss out on a good meal. So they can go a little further because owls are very stealthy in how they go about hunting their meals. In the case of the rest of the raptors, they can only go a little over the center of their back because that's their blind spot. So they can turn their head around, they can see what's going on behind them. They also have to be able to reach an oil gland right above the base of their tail in the center of their back. It's called the uropygial gland. It's an oil gland. They rub their beak on that, and then they rub the oil across their feathers. And it maintains good feather condition, makes the feathers last a little bit longer, and also makes them a little more water resistant. So if you get a sudden downpour, you're not going to be completely soaked through immediately, and you'll always have that ability to fly there. So it works out well for them there. But it's not necessarily the fact that they can turn their head around. Something to do with their face.
Their hearing.
That's the owl. You went to the owl top, didn't you? Yeah. You knew everything about owls, but not necessarily everyone else. We'll catch you on that one. Okay. Something that all birds are going to have?
Their beak.
Their beak. What about their beak?
Is it more of a down?
Yes. More of a sharp hooked edge to it there. Now, every single bird across the globe has a highly specialized beak, and it just depends on what their natural diet is going to be. Some birds are going to be really good at, cracking nuts open and getting the stuff inside there. Other birds are, like shorebirds, have a nice long bill to dig down into the sand. You can get all the delicious critters that are hiding in there, and you can get your meal that way. In the case of the raptors, like we mentioned, it does have a lot to do with their diet. They are strictly carnivores. They're not eating any fruits or seeds, only other animals. And so their particular adaptation for their beak is it's a solid single curve to it, and it's great for biting, twisting, and pulling off bite-sized hunks of meat right off of the bone. It's a very good way to get your dinner there. So I'm sure both of these amazing birds here would love to try to swallow a rabbit whole. I can guarantee you it's not going to go very well if they try that. So instead, what they will do is manipulate that rabbit. Once they've got it with their feet, they will bite, twist, and pull off bite-sized pieces of meat, and then you can actually do that over and over and over, and you will be able to ingest something the size of a rabbit. You're just not swallowing it all at the same time. So great eyesight, sharp hooked upper beaks, and a powerful set of feet and sharp talons is really what sets the raptors apart from all the other types of birds that you're going to find out there. And when we talk about raptors, also known as birds of prey, we'll use that interchangeably. there's lots of subcategories. So you're going to have hawks, owls, eagles, falcons, kites, caracaras, harriers, vultures, osprey, and several others as well. You can find raptors all across the globe on every single continent except for Antarctica, and they do really well for themselves no matter where you might find them. So now that you know a little bit about some of the basics of the raptors, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of our special guests here and some of the little more in detail on some of the adaptations as well. So you can see we have Isham, our red-tailed hawk here. We'll start off with him. This is really, really good for an example of a bird of prey out here, because this is the most common hawk species that you're going to find all across North and Central America. They love to nest at the edges of the forests and at the edges of those open clearings, just like we have out here. So you're probably going to have quite a few of these red-tailed hawks in this valley area. They are going to build a nice stick nest. Usually it's about 3-4 feet across, typically laying around 3 to 4 eggs every single spring. And they have this beautiful coloration that, of course, will give them their name, the red-tailed hawk. But surprisingly, it can be very difficult to correctly identify a red-tailed hawk, because not every red-tailed hawk will have this nice rusty red coloration that you can see in that tail there. So there's a few tricks of the trade that I'm going to teach you, and hopefully you'll remember them and you'll be able to impress all your friends and family as you continue your travels wherever you might be headed. So Isham is with us. He actually originally is from New Mexico, so he's a little darker in coloration than the red-tailed hawks that you're going to see up here in around the Cody area. The ones that we have up here are very pale on the underside. They have almost white or a light cream-colored belly on the underside of their wings as well. There's a few things that you want to look for as far as markings on this bird to really know that it's a red-tailed hawk, especially if the lighting isn't right and you can't see that red tail, or maybe they're perched in a certain way that the lighting is not going to allow you to see any of this. So there's a few things you want to look for. The first is actually terrible to identify on Isham here, because it's a belly band. And it's a scattering of feathers that go right across, makes a little line across his waist. And Isham's belly band is basically 18 feathers scattered all across his breast there. So he's a very poor example for this. So instead, we have our stunt bird. Not this one, this one. This is what the underside of a red-tailed hawk is really going to look like, at least the ones around here. So when you look at the belly of a red-tailed hawk, you're going to see it looks like he's got a little belt going right across his waist. That is unique only to red-tailed hawks. You see that, you immediately know you're looking at a red-tailed hawk. Now these guys are in the buteo family. They're in the soaring hawk family. So they have these really nice broad rounded wings. Looks like they've got some fingertips on the very end there. That helps with getting lift when you're soaring on a nice day like today. But when you look on the underside of a red-tailed hawk's wings, they're going to have that nice white or cream-colored underside, but there is a dash, there's a space, and then a parenthesis, or it looks like a comma. So if you see that dash and the comma along the leading edge of the wing, you immediately know you're looking at a red-tailed hawk. None of the other hawks are going to have that unique marking there. So that's a dead giveaway, especially if they're soaring overhead, and you may not be able to see that nice red tail. Now sometimes they don't always have their wings out. Sometimes they have them tucked in, just like Isham does. And a lot of times you can see these birds perched in the highest available spot. And in fact, that's true for all raptors. Their number one trait is that incredible eyesight. That's how they're going to locate their next meal. And ideally, you're going to be perched in a good vantage spot. If you're not soaring majestically out over these open areas, you're going to be perched in the highest available spot. So whether it's a lone tree on a ridgeline or that nice rocky outcropping out there, or wherever you need to be, fence post, fence pole, the highest available spot. Keep your eyes in those areas. There's a very good chance the raptors will be utilizing them there as you are out and about. But sometimes they have their back to you, and a lot of times this is my trick for when I am IDing them on the sides of the road. A lot of times they'll be perched on that fence post or the power pole with their wings tucked in, and you can't necessarily see the color of that tail. But if you see in the center of his back that nice tan or that rusty colored V, can everyone see that? Only the red-tailed hawks are going to have that little V in the center of their back when their wings are tucked in, if their back is to you. That's a dead giveaway. I didn't know about this until I took a course from the Cornell Institute of Ornithology a couple years back, and now it's really easy to identify these guys. You just have to know what you're looking for. Now, I also say it's kind of goofy having a red-tailed hawk that it's very difficult to identify, because not every red-tailed hawk will have a red tail. Some of them are going to be all white. They're albino. They're beautiful birds. These guys have a very high occurrence of that in the wild. You also will have on the other end of the scale where they're a dark chocolate all across their body, especially up in the Pacific Northwest. So you will not necessarily have the lighter colored markings on there. So there's always some little tricks in there that throw you off a little bit. But worst case scenario, if you see a hawk like this, about this size, you just say red-tailed hawk and keep driving and say it with confidence. Everyone else in your car is going to be very impressed. And most of the time you will be correct, because these are one of the most frequently seen hawk species across the United States there. You can also identify them by call. Hollywood, in their great wisdom, has decided red-tailed hawks actually have a very iconic call. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Okay. This is what you're going to hear. It's associated with the sounds of the Wild West. Sounds familiar? Hollywood uses that with pretty much every bird that they have on film. They're a little biased. I mean, I am too, but these guys sound really majestic. They have that high-pitched, piercing cry, and it's often associated with, you know, wilderness, outdoors, the West. You usually have your cowboy dragging the empty bridle across the desert, and then you have the some sort of bird circling overhead. Could be the buzzards, the turkey vultures. You could have the hawks. I've seen eagles. The funny part is turkey vultures don't have a voice box. They can only hiss and grunt, so they can't even vocalize like that. So most of the time when you're watching this on TV, whether it's a commercial or a film or a TV show, the sound that you're hearing most likely doesn't match up with the actual image of the bird that they're filming. So that's kind of a fun little trivia bit there. But these guys are great as natural pest control. They have a wide variety of prey in their diet, all kinds of mice, voles, ground squirrels, rats, rabbits. They love to go after snakes. Doesn't sound like a smart thing, but this guy, oh, he's stretching. There we go. So this is how you know he's super relaxed, and now the game is to see how still Dana can hold for how long. Because that is the equivalent of a hawk going, I'm pretty relaxed. So this is what you're going to see when they're super chill and having a great time. So that's good news. Bad news for Dana, because she has to hold her arm really steady. So what they're going to do is, I completely lost my train of thought with that. Oh, we lost. Okay. It's just a fun game that we always end up playing if we're holding one of the birds there. They'll go after rattlesnakes. And so he was flexing that really impressive set of talons there. But what they're going to do is soar over the fields, use that great eyesight. They can see things about a mile away, and he can easily tell the difference between that stick and that snake that isn't moving, trying not to be noticed. But he's going to land next to the snake, and what does a rattlesnake do when it feels threatened?
Yes.
It hisses, and it starts to coil up. It starts to make itself a smaller target, and it gets ready to strike. It starts rattling and says, "Back off, man, don't mess with me today. I don't want to be anybody's dinner." And he says, "But why? I'm really hungry and I wanted to give you a hug and invite you to dinner." Because what he's doing is spreading his wings out. And as he gets closer to that snake, he's going to have the most epic distraction that you've ever seen in nature. He's going to take one of those wings, he's going to move that in next to the snake. The snake, once he's too close for comfort, is going to strike. And the way that wing is set up, if he strikes, there's mostly feathers down here. And that happens to be what he's presenting towards that snake. The snake is going to strike, get a mouthful of feathers. In the same instant, he has to reach out with that impressive set of feet, or one foot, and grab that snake right behind the head. And then all he has to do is reach out, crush the skull with that beak, and snip, snip, you've got your breakfast right there. So, pretty impressive. Now, I don't want to make it sound like this guy is immune to rattlesnake venom, because if that snake happens to strike in a soft tissue area and injects the venom, things aren't looking good for the red-tailed hawk. They can die as a result. That's one of the many risks that they run in order to get a good meal. But you'll notice just by looking at his legs and his feet, he's got these beautiful yellow scales that go all the way up his legs. Gives him a better chance of deflecting those fangs if that snake strikes low. There's also not a lot of meat on his bones. It's all further up on his body. And if the snake even strikes towards his torso, he actually has the ability, for lack of a better description, to floof out his feathers, increase the distance between that outer part of the feathers and where that soft tissue area is, and hopefully prevent him from being bitten by that snake there. So it works out pretty well most of the time, and they're really good for going after those snakes. But they also are great for pest control as far as mice. These guys living with us, both of these birds, the owl and the hawk, can eat about 4 mice every single day. The nice thing is, living with us over at the museum, they're living off of room service, so they don't have to burn any calories trying to chase down and capture and kill their prey. Delivered to them on a silver platter, so they're doing really well. But that's very easy for a red-tailed hawk to do in the wild. And on average, a hawk this size will live around 15 to 18 years or so. So if you do a little bit of math, you have about 4 mice every day for an average of 15 years. That means one of these hawks has the potential to eat over 22,000 mice in his or her lifetime. The best part about that for us, it is cost-free, and there are no pesticides and chemicals involved as well. So it's really nice to know that every single hawk out there is on our side, helping control those pest populations and keeping them in check. Now, Isham is with us because of a unique set of circumstances. All the birds that we care for with us at the Draper Museum Raptor Experience are with us because of a disability. As he's looking around here today, you might notice he's actually missing his right eye. He's pretty good at keeping his good eye to you, but you might notice as he's looking around that he does not have that right eye there. He was taking advantage of an easy meal on the side of the road. These guys are very resourceful hunters. They do not want to work any harder than they have to. So oftentimes you can see raptors hanging out on the sides of the roads, and they're watching and waiting for us to drive by in our vehicles. And that motion that we are creating is a great way to flush out all these delicious critters that we talked about. It's a great opportunity for him to fly down and get a quick bite to eat. Unfortunately though, sometimes they run across the road instead of away from it, and when they're fully focused in on their target, they don't necessarily see the oncoming vehicle, and they can get hit as a result. And that's actually why Isham is with us here. He had just recently eaten on a rabbit on the side of the road, or had just finished hunting and going after one of those. He was trying to get up and he was hit by an oncoming vehicle, and the people stopped, pulled over. They saw he was still alive, but he had quite a bit of damage to that right side of his face. But they rushed him into the nearest wildlife rehabilitation center, and they had to surgically remove that eye to make him a little more comfortable. Now, as a result, he does not have the depth perception required to efficiently hunt on his own. It also didn't help that he still had his juvenile plumage, and he was not even 2 years old at the time. So he did not have a lot of life experience, and especially with a lack of depth perception, there's not a good chance that he's going to last very long in the wild, and that's why he came to live with us over at the museum. He's actually one of the hardest working red-tailed hawks that I know. He does all kinds of programs. He's an old hand at doing talks with us here, but he actually is 25 years old this year. So it's nice to know he's doing well. Living with us in captivity, he doesn't ever have to worry about being hit by vehicles ever again or going hungry. Like I said, he gets meals every single day. You're not always guaranteed that as a wild bird. In addition, we have a great vet in Cody that helps us out in case anything bad happens. So because of this quality care and not having to worry about being eaten by anyone, we can actually double that lifespan. And so hopefully he's going to be with us even into his early 30s or so. So we're looking forward to many more adventures with this amazing guy right there. Now, not to be outdone, this is the nighttime equivalent of the red-tailed hawk. This is Teasdale, our great horned owl, and you'll have to excuse her. She's in the middle of molting season right now, so she does not look quite as majestic as she normally does, but she's still pretty good looking for a great horned owl. Now, these guys are going to be a very common owl species all across North, Central, and parts of South America. You can find them in all different types of habitat, ranging from the dense forests, like out here where you would imagine to see lots of owls, but they also can be out on the prairies, the grasslands, the swamps. They live in cities as well, everywhere in between. About the only places you will not find a great horned owl is going to be the Arctic tundra or the dense rainforest. Everywhere else, fair game. Now, these guys are very well adapted towards low light conditions. We talked a little bit about this, but proportionally, if we stretched both of these birds out where they stood as tall as I am, Isham's eyeball, that is to say, is going to be about the size of a tennis ball. Teasdale's eyes, however, take up over half of her skull. They're actually about the same size as your eyeball or mine right now as she's looking around or looking at the window or through everything right now. But if we stretched her out, her eyeballs are going to be the size of grapefruits or softballs. They would weigh about 5 pounds each. And to give you an idea, it would look something like this. So if you can imagine having eyeballs this size, this is basically what owls do all the time. But they're a little different than the rest of the raptors because they're so active in low light conditions. This large eyeball inside of their head really benefits them because they can dilate the pupil 2.5 times larger than what our pupils can dilate to. So they're more than doubling the amount of light that is entering into the eye. But it doesn't stop there. Raptor eyes are longer than they are wide. So human eyes are completely round. We have room for muscle attachments on the back side of the eye right here. And they only take up about 10% of our skull. Now the nice thing about this is that leaves much more space inside that skull for a brain, so we can devote that to good brain power there. But we can also hold our head still, roll our eyes in our sockets, and you can see what's going on out of the corner of your eye without having to turn your whole head around. Works out great for us. In the case of the raptors though, they have incredible eyesight, and this is how they do it. The unique size and shape of the eye. On average, most raptors, their eyeballs will take up a little over half of their skull. But the trade-off is that the eyeball is fused in the socket because it is longer than it is wide, and it gets bigger as it goes back into that skull. Now what happens, we have this nice light entering in this owl's eye, let's say. It goes through all these tightly packed cells in the back part of the eye, right back here. Now there's two types of cells found in an eye. I don't expect you to remember them, but there are rod cells and cone cells. Rod cells are the light receptors. Owls will have lots of those in their eyes. The cone cells are the color receptors. All the rest of the raptors, the hawks, the eagles, the falcons, they're going to have lots of those in this part of their eye. So the light will pass through all these tightly packed cells. It hits the back surface of the eye, and in the owls, this is called the tapetum lucidum. It's basically a mirror. The light bounces off of that mirror, and it bounces through all these tightly packed cells again, so you're doubling the use of that light, and then it exits the eye. So that's what allows the owls to see in next to no light at all, and you can easily fly through a forest without running into a tree and getting a good meal that way. Oh yes, turkey vulture, or raven. So their eyesight is really incredible there, but they will use that to great advantage to locate your next meal. Now the next thing that they're going to have on their side is excellent hearing. Owls have some of the best hearing in the animal kingdom, and when you look at an owl's face, it's iconic. They have forward-facing eyes, but a very round, satellite-shaped face. And I could show you 100 different images of owls, and you could pick out every single one of them. But they have amazing hearing. These facial discs, as they are called, are great for absorbing sound waves and funneling those sounds in through feather tracks towards the ear holes on the outer part of the black crescents on the sides of Teasdale's face there. Now, her ears are just holes in the sides of her head. It's kind of hard to see just because she lost most of the feathers and she's currently regrowing them right now. So they're just little itty bitty ones. But the great horned owl gets their name because it looks like they have great horns on the top of their head there. They're just feather tufts. The fancy word that scientists have for those is plumicorns, and it basically just means feather horns. But they're not ears. The ears are just holes in the sides of their head. But what's really special about the placement of these ears is they're drastically offset. One is up high, one is down low. So offset that they actually will have lopsided skulls. So one of the graphics that we utilize here, this is a boreal owl, but they are going to have a nice skull overlay. You can see one ear is up high, the other one is down low, and it's lopsided. It'll wobble if you set it on a table there. And they're actually going to have ears cupped in different directions. Now the special part about this is, let's say we're having a mouse run around in the field out here. It's creating sound waves. That owl, most of the time, is going to be a sit and wait predator. So again, perched in a nice vantage point, probably one of those trees would be great for them there. They're going to be watching, waiting and listening, rotating their head around, and they're listening especially for any sound waves bouncing up from that mouse's position up towards where that owl is. Now, this is why it's important for them to be able to rotate that head all the way around. So they're getting as many angles as possible. But what's happening is the sound waves are going to hit each ear hole at different times. As they continue rotating this head around, the sound wave will eventually hit each ear hole at the exact same time. At that point, your beak is pointed directly at your dinner, or whatever it is you're listening to. And then you can start to try to look for it, and then once you've pinpointed that location, accurate within millimeters, you can fly down and you can grab your meal there. So they've done a lot of studies with owls. Some species they've found they can pinpoint the location of a mouse up to 100 yards away, the length of a football field, in pitch dark conditions, and they've successfully captured and killed their prey. In Yellowstone, great horned owls and great gray owls are there year round. They've been documented pouncing through over 18 inches of ice and snow in the winter and successfully grabbing a hold of a mouse or a vole that's running around in the tunnels underneath that in the subnivean layer there. So they're doing that just by hearing. They're not even seeing their prey. So that's how good of hearing these birds are going to have. Now, how many of you have had an owl fly over you before? Did you hear anything if you did? If they did fly overhead? They're not going to make any noise at all. And these guys have evolved to have silent flight, and it's actually because they have highly specialized feathers. So you've heard this part for sure. When you look at most raptor feathers, they're very similar, well, to this feather. This is a turkey vulture feather. They're similar to hawk, eagle, and falcon feathers. They're very tightly woven. If I run my hand along this, you're going to hear a zipping noise. They also are very stiff, and they don't bend very easily. Maybe a little bit more towards the end, but that's going to help with that lift since these guys like to soar a lot. Now, most of the time, they're going to have a crisp leading edge all along the edge of that flight feather there, and they have a very forceful downbeat when they do flap. So what happens is the air hits this crisp leading edge and it rolls, creating turbulence over the top of that feather. So you're going to hear a whooshing noise. This is only one feather. Imagine having a full set of wings. You can imagine how noisy you're going to be. The nice thing is, what does the turkey vultures like to eat?
Dead stuff.
Dead stuff, right. So you don't have to worry about sneaking up on anyone if you do this. But in the case of the eagles and the hawks, you're going to have a little more oomph to get to your prey faster than it has a chance to escape. And so you're going to be able to, most of the time, get a good meal before it can get away. So it works out well for these species. Now in the case of the owls, they are going to have highly specialized feathers. These feathers feel like they're made of velvet. They're great for absorbing sound waves and muffling the chance of an echo bouncing off of hard surfaces. So if you are relying very heavily on an excellent sense of hearing, it's really important that you're not making a lot of noise when you actually do go to fly down and grab your dinner. Otherwise you might lose it. So these feathers are very flexible, they're springy, and the most important part is they have a frayed, fuzzy edge, especially right up in here on this particular feather. And it looks like it's kind of frayed and fuzzy on the following edge. And the big version of this looks like this. This is called fluting. Every owl flight feather is going to have some degree of fluting on the leading edge. It looks like it's got eyelashes right along that leading edge there. But when these guys fly, they do a very gentle flap, and they don't really fly up higher than the tops of the trees. They like to stay fairly close to the ground when they're hunting. But they do a lot of gliding, they have a gentle downbeat, and this fluting will negate the turbulence, and you're not going to hear anything at all. Even if I were to go crazy flapping, it's not making nearly as much noise as that turkey vulture feather. But that's normally not how owls are going to flap. They have that gentle downbeat. And this element of surprise is what allows owls to be very successful predators. All they have to do is reach out, grab a hold of their prey. In the case of the great horned owls, they can squeeze with up to 500 pounds of pressure per square inch, and you can easily use that element of surprise, puncture the back of a skull, and take out your prey. Now, they're going to eat the same kind of stuff as the red-tailed hawks. However, they also have been known to go after bigger stuff. Occasionally, things like skunks is actually one of their favorite foods. Great abilities all around, not a great sense of smell. But they know that they taste good enough that they'll constantly go after them. And the majority of great horned owls, if they're found with an injury and rushed into the vet to get fixed up, almost always reek of skunk. It's because they love to eat them so much. But they also will go after a variety of amphibians, reptiles, other birds. There's no love between cousins. They'll go after smaller owl species, lots of songbirds as well. They've been documented going after great blue herons, which stand about 4 feet tall. And they are notorious for going after cats and small dogs. So, if you have some small critters that you let out in the early morning, late evening, make sure you stick around because they have been known to disappear. Unfortunately, Teasdale doesn't know the difference between a meal on wheels and a pet that we want to keep around for a long time to come. Also, when we let those cats out, they're great mousers, but that's what these guys are really good at. And the cats are notorious for going after billions of songbirds across the globe every single year. And as that extra incentive, the great horned owls, which are all across the United States, love to eat the cats. And the cats really appreciate being let back inside as well. Now, Teasdale here is with us because of a unique set of circumstances as well. If you look really close, you might notice that her right wing droops just a little bit more than the left. She was actually found when she was a youngster as well, on the side of a trail near Teasdale, Utah. That's how she got her name. But a hiker found her, and she had run into something, or something had run into her. We're not sure quite exactly what happened, but she broke the equivalent of the hand bones, the metacarpals for us, in that lower portion of her right wing. The hiker found her, wrapped her in a towel, brought her into his vehicle, and he was on the way to the nearest wildlife rehabilitation center when an avalanche occurred and it blocked the road. So her day keeps getting better and better. They had to find an alternate route, so it took an extra 24 hours to get her around that pass and get her into the vet where they needed to fix her up. And in that period of time, her wing bones started to heal, but in the incorrect position. Bird bones heal about 3 times faster than the rate that human bones will heal at. And in that period of time, instead of healing like this, her wing bone was healed like this. And they decided, because she was so young, it was not worth the amount of stress on her to re-break that wing, put it in the right spot. So she does have the ability to fly, but it's very unstable as a result. So that's why she's living with us over at the center of the West there. She is about 14 years old, so she is in her prime. She will live very similar to the red-tailed hawk, 15 to 18 years or so, and hopefully even into her 30s, living with us at the center. And she has a little bit of her dinner stuck to her beak, so you'll have to excuse her, but nobody's going to reach in and get that for you. So, this is Kateri, our golden eagle. This is going to be the apex predator that you're going to see out here. They're ranked right up there next to the wolf, the grizzly bear, the mountain lion. Great horned owls do pretty well for themselves, but great horned owls have to worry about these guys every once in a while as well. So golden eagles are going to actually be found all across the northern hemisphere of the globe. They are going to be typically nesting at the edges of the mountainous terrain, but they also love to hunt over the grasses, the sagebrush steppe, and the grasslands. And we have a lot of that, especially as you go out towards the Bighorn and Oregon basins. But you will see some golden eagles hanging out here on the North Fork. You will see bald eagles as well. There's 2 completely different species that you have here in North America. Of course, balds and golden eagles. And the main difference is going to be coloration. Ooh, we have who is this? Osprey. Looks like an osprey over there. See? What'd I tell you? All kinds of good raptors. So, what you're going to see is the 2 eagle species that we have out here. Bald eagles are going to be typically in more riparian zones, and they are fish eagles. They're generally along a good-sized body of water, and most of the time they're going to be nesting in trees. Golden eagles like to nest on the cliff ledges, so more out in those kind of areas out there. But they are going to build stick nests on the cliff ledges. Now, their diets are slightly different. Golden eagles love to go after medium-sized mammals. Especially in this area, they like rabbits and hares. That's about 75% of what they're typically going to eat. You're also going to have a variety of marmots up in the high country, foxes, coyotes. They will go after large reptiles. The flag of Mexico has a golden eagle going after a huge rattlesnake on it there. In places like Israel and Greece, they're really intelligent hunters. They've been documented flying down, grabbing a hold of a tortoise by its shell there, flying up over a nice rocky area and letting go. They will let the rocks crack it open like an egg. You can easily access the meat on the inside. In the Rocky Mountains and in other parts of the globe where they're going after lots of goats, they can go after bighorn sheep. They're going to use a similar technique as that tortoise. What they will do, while that goat's frolicking around on that steep incline having a great time, they're going to have anywhere from a 5 to a 7.5 foot wingspan. Kateri is a little larger than average for a golden eagle. She actually has a little over a 7 foot wingspan. But what they're going to be doing, it's not worth it, Sally, don't do it. It's so tempting sometimes, though. Even though Kateri would probably allow us to do that. But they are going to be doing really well for themselves. They're going to basically tuck their wings in and dive up to 150 miles per hour. And then they're going to flare those feathers out at the last second, slow down. They're going to reach out with these impressive feet and sharp talons. And what they're going to do is try to grab a hold of the back leg of that mountain goat or that bighorn sheep or the back end, pump the wings back and forth a couple times, tug the goat off balance so it loses its footing. Then ideally you're going to let go. The goat's going to get nicely tenderized, bouncing down the mountainside, and then all you have to do is fly down and your meal is laid out for you on a rocky platter down there. So they're really good at going after those various goat species across the globe. They also, probably the largest things they've been documented hunting will include things the size of wolves and adult pronghorn. And I don't want to make it sound like it happens every day, because that is a lot of work, and the more larger your prey is, the more difficult and dangerous it is for you to safely and successfully capture and kill it. So most of the time, they do prefer to go after those rabbits. But has anyone ever tried to chase a rabbit and grab a hold of it? It's not easy, is it? They're pretty fast. They turn on a dime. These guys have to be able to handle that. And so they can actually flare their tail feathers out. They are able to pivot on a pinhead, essentially, and easily grab a hold of a lot of those rabbits there. Now, a lot of people are surprised to find out that both bald and golden eagles will scavenge quite commonly. It's an easy meal, and especially when it gets a little colder in that various times of the year, it's easier to fly down and just gorge yourself on a carcass on the side of the road or something that may have died out in the pasture there. So they're very resourceful, and they're going to take advantage of that. However, sometimes that has some downsides. Kateri was actually filling up on a antelope carcass on the side of the interstate just outside of Gillette, Wyoming. When your stomach is full, just like we feel now, it's a little harder to get up and about. So she was struggling to get up into the air when she was hit by an oncoming semi-truck. She suffered a compound fracture of her right humerus, so that right wing was broken. Luckily, someone found her right after that collision, and they rushed her in to the nearest rehab center, which, lucky for her, happened to be basically right down the road. They got her into surgery, put a metal pin in that bone. The bone healed beautifully, but unfortunately, that muscle tissue around that did not. And so in exercising her, trying to determine if she would be able to be returned back into the wild, they found she could only get up maybe 5 feet off the ground and no more than 20 feet in distance, which, when you're supposed to be the top of the food chain, is not quite going to make the cut. And so that's why she's living with us at the museum. However, she is our rock star, and she knows it. She doesn't do anything that she doesn't want to, but there you go. She is really, really awesome to work with. And they get this name, the Golden Eagle, because of the nice gold color in the nape of her neck, especially when the sun is shining bright and these guys are soaring. If you see just a giant bird, most likely that's going to be a golden eagle out here. And as far as telling the difference between a bald and a golden eagle in flight, golden eagles will have what is called a slight dihedral. They will have more of a V shape when their wings are open. And they are going to have a pretty consistent flight pattern. Bald eagles are also similar in size, 5.5 to 7.5 foot wingspans, but and of course the nice white head, white tail, dark brown body. But it gets kind of confusing because the juveniles of both all are dark brown, and they both fully mature at about year 5 to 7 or so. That's when they're going to have the nice gold color and the white head and white tail growing in for those balds. But in the case of the bald eagles in flight, they're going to have a very flat shape of their wing, or their wings. So when you look at them head on, they look like a big flying door. They're just straight. They're not going to have that V-shaped dihedral that the golden eagles will have. And you can also use the habitat context as a clue as well. These guys are going to be in more dry, arid locations. Bald eagles are going to be in those riparian zones typically. Now, actually two last things as far as looking at the juveniles, trying to determine them between species. If you look at bald eagles, they typically have a lot taller of a beak, and it doesn't necessarily prove true that it's like gray or like the goldens here. They usually start all black, but they're a lot taller of a bill than a golden eagle. Now, the other thing that you can use to tell the difference besides the shape of the beak, golden's going to be a lot smaller, closer in towards the face there. But if you look at their feet and their legs, golden eagles are what we call the booted eagles. They actually have feathers that go all the way down to the tops of their ankles. So it looks more like they're wearing trousers or pants. Now, in the case of the bald eagles, we jokingly say they're a little more leisurely because they are going to have these nice scales that go about halfway up their leg, and their feathers stop halfway. So it looks more like shorts or capris. So if you see a little more leisurely of a bird, it's going to be those bald eagles. These guys, pants all the way. Better to keep them insulated, but also it's easier for them to dip their feet into the lake, snag those fish, which is their primary diet. But like I said, they also scavenge as well. Now, has anyone ever heard the nickname Eagle Eye? Sounds familiar? It's a really nice compliment. Everyone else can see about a mile away. Eagles, it's estimated 2 miles. So it's really good vision. And she's doing that right now. She's looking right down the valley, seeing what's on the far side of it. So it's kind of neat to see that. But really, really incredible bird species there. Now, do you guys have any questions about golden eagles?
How much does she weigh?
How much do you think she weighs? What's a good guess?
25.
25 pounds? Oh, it's slightly lighter weight.
24.
24 pounds? Yeah. We'll get that later. Sorry, guys. So, any other guesses? 90 pounds? All right. Sally's feeling really strong tonight. 19? 19? That's good. She actually only weighs about 12 and a half pounds right now. Yeah. That's all right. No, that's a good guess. She feels like she weighs 90, honestly, some days. But these guys have to be lightweight because you have to have that ability to fly. So one of the, actually several cool things that we've learned about raptors is that they have evolved to cut back as much weight as possible. One of those is by having a nice lightweight beak. It's your combination knife, fork, and spoon utensil. It's conveniently located right on the front of your face, but basically it does the exact same thing as our jaw, except they don't have to chew their food, so they don't have to have a dense series of teeth like we do in our jaw. They also are going to have no bladder, believe it or not. So there's literally no room for storage of wastes in their body. They have a very rapid digestive tract. They'll absorb what nutrients they need to once they've swallowed something down, and then once they've done that, it basically goes right through the digestive system and straight out the other end, which you can see right there. Especially if you see a bird that has just pooped, within several seconds, they basically are getting ready to fly. They have lightened the load, and now it is much easier to get up into the air, and you don't have to take all that excess weight with you there. She's going to shake her feathers out, maybe. Nope. Oh, maybe. So what's really cool is Kateri really likes to take baths on stage, so sometimes when she gets warm, Sally will mist her down just like you saw there, and sometimes if you mist her, she'll even, on a hot day, basically lift her wings out and say, "Spritz the pits, man." And then after she's sat there in a little bit and kind of gets comfortable and relaxed, she might even decide to lift up all her feathers and shake her feathers out, which is really fun to watch. We'll see if she does that here in a little bit or not. But golden eagles are incredibly powerful birds. They have an incredible grip. So the great horned owl, they can squeeze with up to 500 pounds of pressure per square inch. How much do you think this bird can squeeze? A lot more than that. What was it, 10,000? Not quite, but you're along the right line of thinking there. It's a very close guess. It's actually about, let's see, technically up to 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. So you're closer than everyone else that's guessed so far though on that one. So, scientists have argued on the exact gripping strength of golden eagles, but they've settled somewhere between 750 and 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. You combine that with needle-sharp talons, you can easily puncture the back of a skull and take out something the size of a wolf or a pronghorn and get a good bite to eat that way. Regardless, these are some of the most powerful among the raptors here in North America and across the globe. You can actually see them used for falconry and hunting in Mongolia and other parts of the globe. I have a couple friends that do falconry with golden eagles, which is really, really cool. Not a lot of people do that, and it's quite the thrill. But just giant black dragons, essentially. Yeah, there you go. But incredible birds. And one other thing while I'm thinking of it, you see a lot of the raptors, they have forward-facing eyes a lot. They are predators, but they have this low brow ridge jutting out over their eyes, and they always look really grumpy and upset. And they are smiling. This is a happy bird right there. But what is going on is that's how their face is always set, because it's a great adaptation. If you are soaring majestically out in the open in the middle of the day, there's no shade up there in the sky. So what they're going to do is use those low brow ridges just like the ball cap right here. So as they're looking, if there's sun in their eye, they can just tilt their head a little bit, keep the sun from going into their eyeball, and you can easily see down and follow your prey. It's that simple. Other cool things, falcons, they have what's called malar stripes. It's dark streaks underneath their eyes. Basically, we learned about that and incorporated that into a lot of our modern day sports. Used to be grease paint that we would have underneath the eyes to reduce the glare of the light. Nowadays, usually it's some sort of a sticker, but that allows you to better see. So we learned that from the falcons there. All right, any other questions about the eagle? Yes?
If a golden eagle takes down a pronghorn, how much of that animal are they going to eat?
It's a good question. Probably not the entire thing. They are very good at working limbs loose, we've found, because we've done ongoing studies for the last 15, 16 years or so in the Bighorn Basin. We'll go out and monitor golden eagle nesting sites, and after everyone is left, we'll go into the nesting sites and pick up the prey remains, and we'll try to identify what it is that these birds have all been eating. And they're, especially in the springtime, you're going to have lots and lots of baby antelope legs just hanging out over the edge of the nest. That's obviously much easier to get than an adult. But if an adult is all that's around, they'll go for it. You might work a limb loose and take that back to the nest, but you're going to basically gorge yourself as much as possible there. Sometimes you'll see where they're so full they can't fly, so they have to sit around and digest before they can get back up into the air. It's probably a similar situation to what she was in right before she got hit by that truck. They'll eat as much as they can, but they can always come back to it as well. I mean, if that's there for a week or so, you know, if it's in the cold time of year, it's going to be there a lot longer, so they can afford to go back and pick it clean. But there's also other things that can afford to go in and eat it as well when this guy's not around. So yeah, they get first dibs on the carcasses typically, and then when they're gone, usually some of the other scavengers are going to dart in and get their fill. Any other questions? A lot of people ask, do they mate for life? The joke that we have is they will mate for life, but they don't mourn for a minute if something happens to their significant other. So outside of the breeding season, they will go their separate ways. They're okay by themselves. They don't mind. But then in the springtime, usually the same pair will come right on back. They'll reuse the same nesting territory, and they might have a couple alternate nests within that territory, but they might move it around depending on the availability of resources in proximity to that site. But generally they will keep coming back year after year after year. But if something does happen to their significant other, if they get hit by a car and the other one doesn't return, they'll wait a little bit, but they're not going to stick around forever. They're going to move on. Someone's going to come in and replace them. Life takes its course there. So the other really interesting thing is a lot of people ask, what's the difference between the males and the females? How do you tell them apart? It's very, very difficult. It's because of size. Raptors, for the most part, are physically the exact same coloration as far as plumage. So with the parrots, usually the males are going to be very exotic and outgoing. The females get to choose which is the best looking one. In the case of the raptors, almost all the time they're going to have the exact coloration. There are 4 exceptions to this of various raptor species. Five raptor exceptions there. You can't remember them though. The main difference for raptors is size. So when you see in the spring and the early summer months 2 raptors hanging out in the same area for extended periods of time, if you see the larger one, that is almost always going to be the female. The females are going to have a larger body size because they can better defend the nest against potential threats. They're bigger, they're tougher, but they can also draw upon more resources to produce eggs every spring because that's a lot of work. The males are going to be slightly smaller. They're going to have a little more speed and agility, and that helps you in going after swift prey. You can capture and kill them, and you can feed everyone back at the nest, so it tends to balance out. If you see 2 birds, the larger one is the female, the smaller one is going to be the male, and that's typically what you're going to see across the raptor species there. And Kachiri is also the only bird in our program at the museum where she has laid eggs for us every single year. So it's really nice. We are greatly honored that she feels comfortable enough with the staff and for her settings that she will produce eggs every single spring. Most of the time, because these guys are coming to us from the wild, they know this is not the sort of a setting they would feel safe raising a family in. So for the raptors, they almost have a switch at the back of their mind. They just kind of turn that off, and they just decide not to lay eggs for us there if they're a female. But she's done that every single year. She does not have a mate, so they're not fertilized at all. It's kind of more trouble than it's worth right now for having a male in there with her as well, because she would probably beat the tar out of him every so often. But she also might be a little more territorial of her enclosure, and we have to go in there every single day, make sure she's cared for. We can pick up the scraps and keep everything clean. So we only have education permits. We do not have breeding permits for her there. We're also very fortunate, all the bird species that we care for, they have stable populations in the wild, so there's no need for a captive breeding setting. Always fun. It's something different every single day with what we do. Some days it's just doing routine presentations like this. We're doing outreach. We educate all the tourists as they're going. She sees dinner over there too. We have a nice deer. We also are doing, some days you could be doing basic veterinary stuff, emergency medical stuff. We trim their beaks, their talons. We're constantly doing food prep, cleaning, scrubbing walls, maintaining enclosures, and staying certified in all of our various certifications for doing stuff with these animals. So it's a lot of fun, and we're always learning new things. New scientific papers are coming out, and then trying to put that into layman's terms, because the scientists don't always write in the most articulate ways. So, all right. So, here we go. She's gonna shake. There we go. There, she doubles in size. But there's a lot of challenges that raptors will face in their own lives in the wild. And these guys have had a rough go of it. That's why they're here, and we're able to do presentations and educate about their species, because they don't have a second chance, because we're it. A lot of their wild counterparts don't get that lucky. So there's a lot of challenges that they do face, and it's a lot of through man's creations, through electrocutions, poisonings, shootings, collisions with vehicles, power lines, that sort of thing. And so there's a lot of things that we can do in order to try to help a lot of these raptors out. It can be as easy as reduce, reuse, recycle, pick up trash, even if it's not yours, put it in the appropriate receptacle. If you are out and about in your good-sized body of water, you find some loose fishing line, be sure that you gather that up and put that in an appropriate receptacle as well. A lot of things can get tangled up, not just the birds, lots of other little mammals and stuff as well. It leads to a really unpleasant end. And one last thing, as you guys are continuing your travels, whether you're going on into Yellowstone, going back into town, going back into your own territories, make sure you slow down, pay attention, follow the speed limit. We have lots of animals out here, not just the raptors like Kateri on the side of the highway, lots larger stuff, all kinds of deer, elk, antelope, bears, big woolly bisons. They all have a significant impact upon your bumpers, your wallets, and your lives. So please pay attention, slow down, enjoy nature from a safe distance, and have a safe journey wherever you might be headed. Thank you guys very much for having a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of the week.